Sheila here with Sirius Talis Moon Mars Hour Moon Day. Mars is 2 degrees Aquarius, about to close a cycle with Pluto. The moon is 7 degrees Taurus. And before Mars closes that cycle, Neptune ingresses to Aries today. Um, but here is something that is brutally honest. We do not have a zero extortion called business advice, which means that there is the big missing where once we get our fire reignited, define our business endeavor or brand, find a schedule that doesn't deprive us but actually nourishes both us and our endeavors, learn the relational skills um, to communicate with both our loved ones, ourselves, and our clients. There is the big missing. And that big missing is that if we're up to something, we're going to get spotted. And this is what happened to me with astrology. So, I was just challenging myself to do an astrology podcast. It was not even looking the best or designed the best or accentuated the best. I just started. And immediately that was spotted. And so the big missing is that people don't tell, how should I say that? Upon the bridging of the gap between classes, societies, and even income levels, what we're not told is the big missing, and the big missing is extortion cults. The big missing is money laundering and crime organizations seeking to operate smoothly through somebody running a legit business. The big missing is trafficking and looting of the energy and the talents of, I wouldn't say even our hard work, because a lot of that hard work was actually to relax and rest. Okay, a lot of the hard work was to relax our body into a no slavery mode where creativity could actually spark. And this is the big missing that we're not told about. And because it's the big missing, and because nobody can talk about that, then either we see people suddenly making weird hand gestures or conglomerating up with something that permeates their ability to manifest as a business that is 100% business. Okay? So, not informant business, business. And the information is derived by trafficking. So, not having to target individuals' business. And there is no conversation, there's no open conversation about it. Either people go through that loophole and become informants, which harms their business models and makes them dependent on that status. It creates a bubble. It definitely creates a bubble. They can mingle with the who's and who's. They can consolidate wealth. They can do a lot of things, but that bubble pops. Because when a business is growing, how should I say that? Let's say I'm a client and somebody sells lip balms, and they alter their business model so that they can support their employees, having, let's say, even a small house for each individual in the family um, next to each other, and they have to change the pricing model, whether it's to fully subsidize versus fully priced, and basically brand themselves as a luxury product. Um, or somehow find another loophole to make it still an accessible product, or lines of accessible products with lines of luxury products. However, if everything is going smoothly and they're not an informant and are not participating in targeting individuals, um, and are not participating in trafficking scams, if everything goes smoothly, the client, should be able to, by just interacting with that business, increase upon my ability to buy their products. Okay? Which means that the business and the clients are growing together. The minute something permeates that, it intervenes with the fabric of me, the client, and my prospective endeavors and that business. And once that happens, and it doesn't have to come from the business, it can come from a third party, it can be a campaign that's affecting. Um, but once that happens, basically, there is a grant missing. And nobody actually tells us how to run a business free of extortion calls. Nobody tells us how to protect ourselves from these type of, and I feel like this is the grand missing. In the past several years, I began to acknowledge that by opening that to discussion. Okay, um, because it's basically a life threat that nobody actually talks about. If your business is actually scalable, okay, if I went from astrology readings and some essential oil blends to being introduced to talismans when I thought I thought it was too complicated, and I was kind of like almost channeling an introduction to try to do that anyway, and go into mundane astrology, then that business was scalable on a level that is unprecedented. But this means that the society is elite society, and to operate as a free of extortion called business. And here is what I have to tell you. If you're doing something that, if you're doing something that's aligned with your original authentic self, that business is scalable. It's my anti-Buffett trend. And I'm not anti-Buffetting to Buffett, but to myself, because what people don't understand is that our alignment is naturally scalable. Um, and once the and here is the caveat. It's not a caveat. It's something we need to address in society, because the more we become aligned with learning how to rest enough, learning how to schedule our practices in a way that is flexible, learning how to protect our boundaries, learning how to say no, learning how to even leave something without a response, even if it is from a billionaire. Um, Learning how to honor our sexual energy. Okay, when Annika Lucas was smuggled out of trafficking cults, um, she was told never have sex for any, never have basically sex that is transactional. It's not just about for money, it's for anything. Basically, don't have sex for anything other than your own pleasure. If somebody, not again, not to rape anybody, yes, but and that was an important advice that allowed her also to make money. Um, and not to marry someone that is lower or upper class to her. She was elite class, so it was not a big issue, but um, and again, she was leaving a child trafficking cult. Okay, the people like, oh, but money is not everything. She was living a child trafficking cult, being, raped as a child, and having to harm this, yeah, um, and basically nobody has a conversation about these topics when it comes to running a business. Nobody prepares us that we're going to have to wonder which of our colleagues is participating in trafficking and being informant, and which third parties try to make us think that our colleagues do that or that we do that. Nobody tells us about how scalable is our humble endeavor. Nobody, people think, I don't know, they do any type of business idea. Um, Decorated cakes, okay? Nobody tells us how scalable is that business. It's decorated cakes for events, it's decorated cakes for businesses, it's decorated cakes for inauguration parties. It's and here is what's the difference. The minute we align with our own sexual sovereignty, that's what it means. Saying no to this, and saying yes to ourselves, saying no to distractions. What is it's kind of like a session of self-pleasuring, centering on our own life energy embodiment, taking the time to relax. That's the analogy of actually running an aligned business that takes the time to stop, takes the time to hold. Wait a second, am I into that? Wait a second, how do I feel about that? Wait a second, oh, that's not something in for me. And developing secure attachment with ourselves emotionally, that makes our business scalable to royal levels. Now, here's the things, they don't have it there. They don't have it there. They want what we have, but they don't know what it is. And what they would want is our product, our consultation, but first and foremost, our sex energy. And they basically want to traffic us because of that, because they try to, um, they kind of, how should I say that? They and here is the thing about it. What made us scalable, how needs to be preserved. When I was teaching English, I was asked so many times, Shirley, why don't you go to teach at schools? And I said, I know I know myself, I know my boundaries. My competence is when I teach in either small groups or one to one. I will not be able to get the holistic picture of the person in front of me. What are they good at? Not just in English, but in math, language acquisition that is connected to computation, in the arts. What do they want to be when they grow up? And then do that, but in English. Or where do I need to concentrate my efforts to refine and what flows naturally? I can't do that to 40 students at once. Definitely not alone. So that was a boundary that had to be set. And it was so obvious that that infrastructure was so much that I would literally tell my students, for the English, you can Google that. But if an infrastructure where you manifest and take actions on your dreams, but in English, and immerse yourself in the experience and have somebody that's there with you, this is the service I provide. Now, of course, also for these children, nobody tells them because I couldn't tell them because I wasn't that at that level yet. It arrived when I did aromatherapy. It arrived when I did astrology. By the way, it also arrived when I did English teachings. My students were the children of the people that are behind the infrastructure, the water infrastructure, the city infrastructure and engineering. I didn't notice that because me, I was just teaching English, and I had to fight to get to be in my schedule, not because I was pretending, but because I took a really busy semester, and and the fact that I set those boundaries was placing me up so that I was the cherry on top. There is the do your homework, do your this. They had to be prepared to arrive to my classes, and for me it was just natural. Hmm. And I wasn't. There weren't many students. One, two, three students, and usually the families know each other. That's it. It was not a megalithic business. But then came the satanic cults, and I did not know it because they were after the children. I was kidnapped and tortured. I wasn't even connecting that because, hey, y'all know what I did in academia. Yeah, you know what my thesis was unraveling. Okay, and so everywhere I went, this alignment with myself created mass scalable something that to come to fruition had to dissolve extortion codes. And I'm here to tell you because each and every one of you that has a business, that has an idea, even if you're working for corporation, even if you're unemployed, all of those life lessons of are basically the lessons of not selling our soul. And then we reach the people that were convinced that they had to soul trade. And they want what we have. They want our services, but they try to get at our reading to control the life energy that we come with, because they see the potential on the most essential level, which is energy. Whether you're an astrologer or an English teacher or decoration of cakes or talismans maker, they see it in the essence. Oh, there's life there. I want that life. There's a soul there. Can you get me that soul? Can you get that soul to agree to barter with me? And here is the thing. What made us so scalable is acting antithetical to the elite. What made us so scalable is aligning with our sovereignty, which shed any sort of slavery around us, like trees shed their leaves in autumn. And now it's ice. So it's bridging a cultural gap, but it's also bridging a gap where the elite never got to recover from trauma, and neither did we. And there is a certain threshold of to be able to talk about that and to untangle from those soul binding. Because wasn't it the elite that inspired us with their motivational quotes, with their interviews? But to work together, it cannot be on an Epstein Island trafficking and torturing children. Somebody has to talk about that. Somebody has to talk about us needing a reasonable working environment that maintains sovereign life energy. Somebody has to talk about it on a mass scale. We need to deprogram from ritual abuse. That's the grand missing. It's very embarrassing to talk about it because it's also crimes against humanity. But it's but the essence of those crimes against humanity is an isolated hell that that no one seems to be able to escape. It's basically the death camps and the Holocaust. And you think about at the working camps, and the Holocaust was not just for Jews. People are like, do you really think 6 million Jews? Fulkin. It was death and concentration camps for everybody. Jews, not Jews, forget about it. Those things in United States, in Switzerland, there are death and concentration camps now, labor camps. Okay, nothing unique to the Jews. Was more registered and so on and so forth, whatever. But the essence of that being a slavery place and the Nazi regime putting um, basically the orchestra in the entrance to the city, making it look like it's such a beautiful place to stay at and look at the culture, okay, not knowing what's within. That's our celebrity culture. They are in that ghetto. It looks like a mansion, but everybody's raped within it with a shit ton of drugs so that they come from misplaced arousal. And the grand missing is so missing, okay? Rather than talking about crimes against humanity, let's talk about that grand missing. Because they want what each and every individual has. From the essence, even if a person thinks they got nothing, they can see the potential in energy. But those, but the very things that make us a scalable business is basically what prevents an overall sustaining, flourishing, happy, thriving economies and legacies. I talked previously about how slavery culture bankrupts empires. those worlds are, I can't say so distinctly different, because when we are busy aligning ourselves, then every world is distinctly different. There is aligned, and when there is the aligned, we're running with that, so much so that everything has to 9/11 around us if it isn't aligned. Because no, and note the thinking, because when we are aligned with is, what isn't, of course, is like, yeah, that's crime against humanity. We're not busy thinking that. We're thinking about, well, the grand missing. Our talents and scalability is so desired because we are with a sense of self and original, unique contribution. And all there really has to be is to allow that to be. And the craving of that, basically, with the people that inspired our success, not knowing how to generate that. Believing they need to traffic and be trafficked, entangled in treason and codes, and not even valid NDAs that are about soul contracts. Okay. um, it's just so, okay. And but the fact that this is the grand missing is also an understanding that us scalable young business and youngpreneurs need to know that those things exist, and at the same time realize that what made us scalable, the conditions have to be preserved before we come in any contact with the elite. Any joint venture, any business deal, any wealth consolidation. In every growth, there are, the segment, in every growth, there are um, the times where we embark into a new phase. And and the attempt to corrupt the timeline and lower the frequency to soul trade frequencies are not compatible with our entrepreneurship.